Welcome back to my channel where we're not just dreaming of early retirement, we're making it happen one money move at a time. I'm Raimi and I'm here to share my experience and knowledge investing in multiple properties to fast track my way to wealth. Today we're myth busting home ownership. I want to share 5 common misconceptions I hear about buying a house and debunk them. Let's get into it. Number 1, and this one I hear a ton, is that renting is going to be cheaper than buying. Now that may be true in certain scenarios, but it really depends on where you live, right? In certain cities, you'll actually find that rent increases very aggressively and may actually increase more than, say, a mortgage payment would with increases in property taxes and whatnot. There's also the opportunity cost of renting. If you're not investing in property, that means you're foregoing equity that you could be building over time. Number 2 is that you shouldn't buy property if you don't plan on staying where you live forever. Now, this is completely false. Property ownership doesn't have to lead to marriage. It can just be dating. Now, my best advice and the best method for investing is to buy and hold over the long term. But even if you buy property and hold it for 5+ years, you're likely going to make a decent return and you can snowball that into other investments. So that's always going to trump renting. Number 3 is that you can time the market. This one I hear a lot from people, especially in Austin. I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, people were like, there's gonna be a crash soon. I'm not gonna invest until there's a crash. There still hasn't been a crash. Yes, the market did dip given the Fed raised interest rates, but again, it didn't lead to a crash. It is very difficult to time the market. Even the best economists in the world don't know 100% what's going to happen. Once you have the data that indicates that you should make a move, it may actually be too late. For example, if the Fed announces a rate drop, competition's going to rise, which means prices are going to rise. And that house that you may have been able to comfortably afford without any competing offers may become out of reach. The biggest thing to consider is that real estate increases over a long time horizon. So my best advice is to buy now, wait, and the equity will come over time. Number 4 is that you have to have a sizable down payment to be able to afford a house. A lot of people think that you have to have 20%. In reality, with what's called an FHA loan, you can actually put as little as 3.5% down to buy a house. Now, one thing to consider is your monthly payment is going to be significantly higher if you put 3.5% down versus if you put 20% down. But again, this lowers the barrier to entry for owning a home. Another thing to consider is if you don't put 20% down, the lender will add something called PMI or private mortgage insurance to your loan based on the risk, right? I remember when I bought my first property, I put 3.5% down. I have an FHA loan on that property. And because I didn't put 20% down, the lender did charge me an extra $150 a month as PMI. So my monthly payment went up by $150, but I didn't need that 20% lump sum of cash that I frankly didn't have at the time. So this really lowers the barrier to home entry and can be a good tool to use if you genuinely just don't have the cash. And finally, number 5, I hear this a ton too, that the costs associated with homeownership are just unmanageable. That's false. Now don't get me wrong, there are a lot of costs associated with buying a home, but if you do your research and follow key steps, you can actually make it manageable and affordable. First and foremost, before you move into a property, I recommend having thorough inspections done, especially if it's a resale. Typically, people will opt to have just a general inspection done, but depending on the age of the home, there may be a need to have other types of inspections done as well. You may want to have a professional roofer come out. You may want to have a professional plumber come out and just make sure that you're covering all of your bases and inspecting every inch of that house so that there aren't any surprises after you close. If you do thorough inspections, then you can request the necessary money from the seller to be able to take care of anything that's wrong and give you the peace of mind knowing that you know what you're getting into. I also recommend building a strong relationship with a local handyman. So this really saved me when I moved into my first house. I had a handyman that I could call and say, hey, my garbage disposal is not working. Can you come check it out? Or, hey, this thing is leaking. Can you come and take a look? And he didn't charge me an exorbitant amount every time he came out to take a look. I also knew that I could trust him over a period of time and that he wasn't lying to me about the work that needed to be done to fix whatever I was saying wasn't working well. Having a local handyman relationship could make things more affordable because number one, you build the trust, you know that whatever they're recommending is likely what you need to have done. And number two, because they want your repeat business, they're typically not going to charge you crazy prices. And there's always the option to buy a new build, right? So the good thing with a newly built home is that if something does go wrong after you move in, it's usually covered under warranty for a period of time, right? So the builder will have someone come out at no cost to you and actually take care of the issue. So for people that are wary about different costs associated with homeownership, I would highly recommend exploring the new build route, again, to give yourself that peace of mind. Those are 5 common misconceptions that I typically hear associated with buying a home, but I'd love to hear from you. Let me know in the comments what other myths you hear or what your perspective is on the ones that I've shared. Don't forget to subscribe and join the squad so that you don't miss a video that's released, and stay financially fabulous.